All right, there's a little twist in this message about 2 more minutes in. See if you can catch it. Because today, I want to talk about clingers. Not swingers, clingers, okay? You're like, is that any better? Clingers, because come on, you know what a clinger is. A clinger is somebody who would just text you, hey, out of the blue. And then 30 seconds later, hello? And then a minute later, no response. Wow. Guess you're too busy for me now. Big time in me. A clinger is somebody who will text you they miss you when you're in the bathroom. You know what I mean? If you've seen the movie Wedding Crashers, which of course I haven't, but Ethan's explained it to me. It's not like I can quote the whole movie or anything, but there's a scene where Vince Vaughn's character Jeremy meets Gloria at a wedding that he crashes, and they get to know each other in an intimate way. They hook up, okay? I didn't write the script, don't be mad at me. That's just what happens in the movie. And right after that, so it's 30 minutes after they meet, and Gloria says to Jeremy, I love you. She drops the L-bomb right away, and she says, Jeremy, we're gonna be so happy with each other. Never leave me, Jeremy. And then she says, because I find you. And then she laughs like, ha ha ha. And you just see it in her eyes, or at least I've not seen it, but Ethan described it to me this way. And it just it gives you the chills, and you can see Vince Vaughn panicking, and he runs to find his buddy Owen Wilson, his fellow wedding crasher, and says, dude, we gotta get out of here. This broad's crazy. He says, and I quote, I've got a stage 5 clinger. That's what I wanna talk about, clingers. And I can just kind of feel some of your attitudes right now already. You're like, clingers. So embarrassing. Can you believe some of these people? Clingers. And you know what? I agree. It is a little bit embarrassing. But I actually have a message today for all of us about how statistically 98% of us listening to this message are clingers. But not to a person. To our phones. This is a message about your there's the twist, right? You caught it. This is a message about what might be our most dysfunctional relationship, our relationship with our phones. What if I were to tell you your relationship with your phone is, for a lack of a better word, clingy and a little bit obsessive and kind of embarrassing and maybe a bit dysfunctional, and you take it to the bathroom with you, and you sleep with it every night or next to it, and you consult it about everything before you do anything, feeling phantom vibrations in your pocket, thinking, oh, somebody's thinking about me. We're gonna be so happy with each other. I've got my Find My Phone setting on, so in case you ever go missing, I find you. Ha ha ha. I want to preach a message about me and probably about you, and I want to call it Stage Phone Clingers. Because Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, and everything hinges on that. But what if, and here's my thesis, your relationship with your phone will either make or break your relationships with God and the people you love the most. June 27th, does anybody know the significance of June 27th? It's me and Sam's 11th anniversary, hint, hint, but not that. It's also going to be the 18th anniversary of when Steve Jobs and Apple set the iPhone free into the world. It was right around the time, if you remember, that Facebook came on the scene, and as soon as you got a college email, you could join it, and it was exclusive to only those with college emails, and it was really cool. But then they let everybody join, including our parents' generation, and it ruined it for us because they can now see pictures of us partying and argue about politics with people they went to high school with. And like Twitter and YouTube kind of started to catch steam around that time. And then all of a sudden, all of it, the cloud, the app store, all of it was in one location for the first time ever. On your phone. No more printing out MapQuest directions. You know, some of you don't even know what I'm talking about right now. This is like a calculator, a compass, a calendar. and a camera. How do you like that? Just a one-stop shop, your music, your emails, an app for this, an app for that, a million other things, a one-stop shop in one location for everything, including now your relationships. Perhaps a romantic life through a dating app. Maybe a friend group through social media. Maybe even a sex life via pornography. The iPhone has been named the most influential gadget of all time. And over the last 18 years, it's gotten bigger and better, and then smaller and better, and then bigger and better again, and then smaller or bigger, your choice, but still better. And it does amazing things. That goes without saying. Some of you are here today because you saw a social media post, or a friend texted you, or you heard a Red Rocks worship song on Spotify, and then you use Waze to navigate and find this building. And the Great Commission has actually never been easier than it is right now because of this. However, we have also created something we don't fully understand. And I'm not talking like we don't know how it works. We know how it works, or at least some people know how it works. I'm saying we're only beginning to figure out what it does to us. Pastor Jonathan Pokluda said something recently that gave me chills. He said after conversations with a lot of different pastors, he believes the smartphone is the greatest danger to the church today and the single greatest hindrance of our relationship with God. It is an amazing tool that so quickly becomes a trap. And if you don't think I'm talking about you, you're kidding yourself right now. Jonathan Pokluda, he says there's a rhythm in the Bible that looks like this. You see it over and over again. God gives us a blessing. We turn the blessing into an idol or an entire house of idols. And then that blessing turned idol becomes a curse in our lives and those around us. Depression, anxiety, comparison, self-harm, loneliness, suicide rates. These are the things that have skyrocketed, and I do mean skyrocketed, ever since June 27th, 2007. I'll just give you a few statistics from the American Psychiatric Association. Not what experts are saying, but what kids are saying about themselves. Between 2005 and 2017, depression in kids aged 12 to 17 rose 52%. In that same time frame, depression in young adults 18 to 25 rose 63%. Why? Between 2000 and 2018, suicide rates in the US increased by 37%. I touched on this topic for about 7 minutes back in January. And I've had so many conversations with so many of you about it that I figured I would preach an entire message about it for first and foremost myself. Because my name is Doug Wekenman and my smartphone is smarter than I am. Siri's never asked me anything. ChatGPT has never consulted me. And this is not a message about everybody get your iPhones and let's go throw them in Lake Austin together. That's not what this is. And let's hide from the world and not even be in it. This is a message about how to have a smartphone in a wise way, because I do believe that's possible. But it takes a lot more than just having good intentions. You have good intentions with your smartphone, congrats, so does everybody, doesn't matter. It takes living with intentions. Ephesians 5:15. I don't know that this verse has ever mattered more than it does right now. The Apostle Paul says, guys, be careful how you live. I've been praying all week. He or she who has ears, please, God, let them hear. Be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but live like those who are wise. Life is not a formula, but wisdom understands certain patterns about life. That you are what you eat, whatever you consume. You will become whatever you give your attention to, and you will reap what you sow. And there's not an app in the world that will change that. Luke chapter 15, Jesus tells this very famous story about the prodigal son. And one of my favorite stories in the entire Bible, there's a dad who has 2 sons, and the younger brother asks his father for his inheritance early. And the father agrees. And the father divides his wealth between his two sons. So that would have been money, and it would have been land and probably assets that the son sold off to get more money, because verse 13, Jesus says this: a few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land. And there he wasted all his money in wild living. And the story continues and says, then the times get so tough and he's at such a rock bottom. He's so desperate and he looks for a job, but the only job he can get is feeding pigs. And one night he is so hungry that he looks at the pig slop and he thinks to himself, it doesn't look that bad. And I want to zoom in on a rather obscure detail of the story that I've never heard preached about. The inheritance. His inheritance. I've been thinking about his inheritance because literally speaking, his inheritance was money. But symbolically, it was two things. Number one, it represented access. Access to the entire world, good and the bad. And then number two, it represented something powerful enough to change not just his life, but him, for better or for worse. The inheritance took the prodigal son from the father's house to the faraway land. It was access to the world and something powerful enough to change him, and he was given this inheritance before he had the humility or the wisdom to be able to handle it. And here's the connection I want to make today. The smartphone in your pocket symbolically is the exact same thing as the younger brother's inheritance. It gives you access to the world. It's a portal into the entire world, everything good and everything evil as well. And it represents a force that is powerful enough to change not just your life, but to change you for better or for worse. And the danger is when we are given access to power before we have the wisdom to steward it. And what's scary is nobody thinks I'm talking to them right now. But Proverbs 20:21 says, an inheritance obtained too early in life is not a blessing in the end. And I'm not talking about age. And I'm not talking about whether or not to give an 11-year-old a smartphone, or I'm not gonna tell parents how to parent. I'm just glad that I have a few more years before I even have to come up with answers to those questions. I think parenting's already one of the hardest things you can do, let alone in the internet age, okay? I do think there's objective wisdom. I also think there's subjective situations, but I'm not talking about age. I'm not talking about parenting. I'm talking about us. I'm talking about our culture. I'm talking about as a people being given something that we don't fully understand. Access to the entire world, good and evil, and something powerful enough to change us. And the greatest potential danger to your faith and the greatest potential danger to you missing the fullness of life that God is trying to lead you into might just be the phone in your pocket. And your relationship with it will be what makes or breaks your relationships with God and the people you love the most. And I want to show you how and show you why. In a similar way to this slide that almost kind of shows a slider, if you will, of access and power, taking him from the father's house to the faraway land. I want to give you 3 points in 3 ways in 3 sliders that our phone sort of does that to us as well. And the next one has to do with depth and distraction. Your phone, because of it, are you living a life of depth, or are you really living more of a life of distraction? We're kind of like the chronically distracted generation. If the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. He'll get you living a life of all the time distraction, recording all the moments instead of living in all those moments. And this is haunting to me, the way this is phrased, skimming the surface of the depths of your life with a phone in hand. Ronald Rolheiser says this: today, a number of historical circumstances are blindly flowing together and accidentally conspiring to produce a climate within which it's difficult not just to think about God and not just to pray, but to simply have any interior depth whatsoever. We, for every kind of reason, good and bad, are distracting ourselves into spiritual oblivion. Sociologists and scientists are using natural selection language right now, you guys. That as the world becomes full of more and more drugs of choice and distractions available to us, that nature itself is going to select for the undistracted, for those who can self-regulate in a world of temptation. The evidence is indicating that these things are making us more spiritually numb and relationally shallow. So once again, my name is Doug Wekenman, and this phone, I guess I'll say this way: this message is for me before it's for you, and I am a stage phone clinger. And I don't want to preach a message today, once again, about let's go trade in your smartphone for a dumb phone. Although I think God might call a few of you to do that, and I think you will be better for it because of it. You will be the ones outsmarting the rest of us if you do so. And if you do that, I'll go to the store with you and celebrate. I won't even film it on my phone. I'll just be in the moment and I'll celebrate it with you. I've been praying no condemnation, but I've asked God that this message would bother us today. And do not be afraid of conviction. For conviction is God's signal flare to you that he has something better available to you if you will hear it. But this isn't a message about getting a dumb phone. I really believe it's possible, once again, to have a smartphone in a wise way. However, you know what's crazy to me about the idea of getting a dumb phone is that we hear that and we think it's crazy. That's what's crazy. It's like we're all in this smartphone club together, and we all just kind of giggle and laugh about the fact that we are addicted to the internet and shorter attention spans and less social skills and less present with our kids and less present in the room with the people that we love the most, and a little bit more angry and a little bit more anxious year after year. And all of our data being stored and used against us, from your shopping habits to how well you slept or didn't sleep last night, to and social media making you the product, selling your precious attention to vendors at the cost of the most important resource you have, which is your attention, and becoming more like what we give our attention to, and the world around us and reality becoming more and more dull and more black and white by the year as our precious dopamine drips out of our prefrontal cortex onto the glowing screen in front of our faces, and all of us are like, can you believe the crazy people who don't have these? I'm not saying don't have one. I'm saying, for me, the man in the mirror is holding a phone all the time. And I hate that it's possible that my kids think their dad looks like this. I hate the idea of skimming the surface of the depths of my life and missing moments when the moment, you guys, the present moment is all we ever get. It takes so much more than just having good intentions. It takes living with intention. So your phone, that's a blessing, does not become a literal curse on your life. So that your relationship with your phone can make and not break your relationships with God and everybody else. And so, an action step really quick to move from distraction into more depth is this: anchor your day without your phone. If you dare. Try this and see how challenging it is, and see how much it changes your life for the better a month into it. What do I mean? I mean, put your phone to bed an hour before you go to bed. And then you wake up an hour before you wake up your phone. So you can start your day with intention before Silicon Valley hijacks your day with their intention. And then you can spend the day having a phone instead of the phone spending that day having a human. 71% of people are on their phones within the first 10 minutes of waking up. 75% of people scrolling in their beds as they fall asleep. You know that feeling of you either win the day or lost the day, And that feeling of, man, I just lost this day. When did I lose it? You lost it last night with how you chose to go to bed with this. And it robbed precious blessing from your sleep, which, by the way, sleep is an act of worship. The deeper you sleep shows you have a trust in the God who's not sleeping, who's watching out for you, who is restoring your body and your mind. And a 2023 survey shows we check our smartphones 144 times a day. Imagine if we checked in with God 144 times a day. Just think about that. 89% of people report feeling phantom vibrations. That syndrome, it's a syndrome. Phantom vibration, where you think your phone buzzed in your pocket, but it didn't. Imagine if we were that sensitive to the promptings of the Holy Spirit. Just think about that. Anchor your day without your phone so you can set your intention to live a life of depth, undistracted. Because if I know anything about all these sliders moving to the left, I mean, this is like the wind just kind of takes you. There's a current in culture, you don't even think about it, and you slide to the left. But to move to the right, takes living different. Takes living in a kind of way that demands an explanation from the world that's watching. The next one is this: is your phone creating more connection or compulsion? And I'm talking of addiction, which I can speak with a lot of authority about because I have so much experience. But addiction in 2025 is no longer a conversation about heroin and whiskey and those people. Addiction is now a conversation about phones and all people. 1 Corinthians 6:12, Paul says, I have the right to do anything you say. Here's his rebuttal. Okay, that's true, but not everything is beneficial just because you have the right, just because everybody else is. I have the right to do anything you say again, but I say back to you, but I won't be mastered by anything. And to have this and not be mastered by it, anytime you start to be mastered by something, that is called addiction. And one of the words associated with addiction is the word compulsive, without even thinking about it. You wake up in the morning and without thinking, the first thing you reach for is a drink. That's an addiction. You wake up in the morning and without thinking about it, the first thing you reach for is this. And the sinister thing about addiction, the way it affects your brain is when you're in the addiction, you can't see the cause and effect of your addiction. It's not until you're sober and you turn around and you look back at the wake of shrapnel that you go, oh my gosh. Which means 95% of the people in all of these rooms will not hear the point I'm making right now. Your phone gives you quick and easy hits of dopamine, addicting you to it, bringing you back to it again and again. Your phone doesn't have a soul until you give it one. That's what addiction is. That's just a bottle. That's just a beer bottle, an orange pill bottle. It's just a phone. It has no soul until you assign it one. It's a tool. It's also a trap. It is an idol. It could become a house of idols. Access to 1 million addictions: social media, gambling, online shopping, fantasy football, gossip, fame, anger, pornography. That's the epidemic we're living in the middle of right now. And 97% of pornography is accessed via the smartphone. And more, we are seeing the seeds that pornography has been sowing over the last couple of decades. We're starting to see all of what is being reaped. And Dr. Satinover says this about pornography: it's as though we have devised a form of heroin 100 times more potent, usable in the privacy of one's own home and injected directly into the brain through the eyes. The internet is now the world's biggest drug dealer. We're living in the middle of a giant human experiment. What happens when you give billions of people access to everything in the world, good and everything evil, including all things sex and pornography? And the answer is, it is destroying us, starting from the age of about 9 or 10. It is shooting bullets into brains. And compulsion will rob connection. And I say that with a lot of humility because it's a big part of my story. And I have found out firsthand how sexual immorality can rob so much of the life that God has for you. Jesus said in John 10:10, the devil came to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. I can speak firsthand on both sides of that coin. I know how it feels to be stuck in addiction. I know how shame, the compulsion that leads to shame, robs connection as you isolate yourself more and more. And more important, I know how grace can restore and redeem your life and lift you out of the pit and write a new chapter. And I don't know that because I read a verse about it. I know that because I have lived it. And the same thing is true for you. Compulsion will continue to rob connection until you live different, until you do something about it, Andrew Huberman says this about addiction: it is the progressive narrowing of the things that bring you joy, until only one thing brings you joy. And then that one thing that brought you joy doesn't really bring you joy anymore. Now it just kind of numbs you from feeling pain. And if that's true, then that includes the joy you get from the people you love the most. Narcotics do that. That's my firsthand experience. Alcohol, pornography does that. And make no mistake about it, phones do that. It's a socially acceptable addiction, but it will rob your joy of everything else. And I'll just kind of throw myself under the bus, but if you're a parent of young kids, you might be able to relate to this. That feeling of you start to day after day, you're counting down the minutes more and more until it's bedtime. You can put the kids to bed and you can crash on the couch and binge watch more episodes while you doom scroll on Instagram. And it's not just being exhausted because you have little kids. Of course you're exhausted. And what a privilege that exhaustion is. But it's something more than that. Have you noticed now? It's like more and more, it's not just the exhaustion, it's this narrowing of joy. And the joy that I used to feel from the sound of the pitter-patter of little feet in the kitchen, or my son and my daughter making a mess in the garage because they were playing and using their own imaginations, but now it's more of an inconvenience because I gotta clean it up. And I'm not just tired, I'm now a little bit more irritable. And why does life and all these good things and amazing people, and I'm so blessed, but why are they bringing me less and less joy? Addiction to anything, compulsion to anything robs that connection. And the good news is that if the addicted life is the narrowing of what brings you joy, then the abundant life that Jesus came to offer does the exact opposite. It's the gradual expanding of the things that bring you joy. And neuroplasticity works in the bad direction, but it can also combine with your intentionality and the grace of God to rewire your brain back in this direction, where life becomes more and more in color like it used to. And your kids and your best friends or your spouse are bringing you the joy that they used to, that you haven't felt in such a long time. But it takes intentionality. So here's the action step to move from compulsion to connection. Delete the distractions and limit your access. You now have access to the world, good and evil. With great access comes great responsibility to limit it by yourself because nobody's coming to do it for you. Delete distractions, limit the access. Like, is that app really serving you? Is that app a tool or is it honestly a trap? If it's a trap, why do you have it? Some of you, man, maybe just like getting off of social media. I think we'd all be like, man, if we could all just get off social media and it was no longer a thing, it would be so much easier. But you think, man, the world is, guys, you will not miss it. And you will be happier than everybody else in this room a year from now. And I don't want to like just drop something that sounds that extreme, but maybe it's just something as simple as turning off push notifications. I'm like, you want to live undistracted, you want to live with more connections, but you're still getting push notifications from TikTok? I'm like, man, there's objectively dumb ways to have a smartphone. What, so TikTok can own you every 30 seconds instead of just every 5 minutes? Delete the distractions. Nobody's gonna do it for you. Eliminate the access. I talk to guys all the time battling pornography who will say, Pastor, I want freedom, and I'll have that talk all day, any day, because I believe it for you. But then I'll start challenging, like, so you're battling. Okay, so do you still have Instagram? Yeah, I still have Instagram. Okay. Have you replaced Covenant Eyes or Chrome and Safari with Covenant Eyes yet? Well, no, I haven't done that. Okay, where's your phone right now? Oh, it's in my pocket. Okay, I thought you said you were battling. Battling a drug by carrying it around with you in your pocket. Here's what I think. I think you have great intentions that don't matter at all. Who cares about good intentions? This takes living with intention. I'm telling you, whether it's pornography or 100 other drugs of choice available to you through this, only men and women in 2025 who are willing to live a little bit unreasonable and do things everybody else is not doing and live in an uncommon way, only those of us willing to do that will truly walk in freedom in our cultural moment. It's going to take living in such a way that demands an explanation from a watching world to truly walk in freedom. The next one would be, is it making you more authentic or artificial? I'm excited about this. I've been wrestling, trying to put language to this all week. And I want to ask you a hypothetical question. I'm really kind of excited just to feel the response to this. I'm curious. Imagine for a second, it's your birthday. Happy birthday. And the person who loves you the most writes you a letter for your birthday. And maybe it's your husband or your wife or a best friend or a parent or a kid. And they write you, guys, this is the most heartfelt letter. This is the most well-written. It's beautiful. It makes you cry reading it, okay? Don't you just feel good thinking about this? So now imagine the very next day you find out ChatGPT wrote it. How does that make you feel? I'm so curious because I think there's a generational phenomenon happening in our culture, and I bet even in this room, where the older you are, you heard what I just said, and you are horrified, and you are shocked, and you are appalled and even hurt by that. But the younger you are, truly, you are thinking, what's the problem? AI said it better. It got the message across. So what's the problem? Here's the problem. It's one thing if ChatGPT helped you write it. And by the way, if you're not using that, you should be. It's awesome. It's an amazing tool. And I'm not talking about writing emails. That's the exchange of information. I'm talking about the exchange of soul. All right? It's one thing if ChatGPT helps you. It's another thing entirely when ChatGPT does it for you. And the reason is because when it comes to relationships, it's about the journey, not the destination. Relationships are the journey by definition. Think of the prodigal son. He was given the inheritance without earning it. He was given the reward without the effort. He didn't have to go on a journey because his inheritance took him straight to the destination, all right? And when it comes to love, the journey is everything. So in a recent interview, Simon Sinek said this. He said, AI can write a pretty good book that sounds a lot like me when you read it. It's pretty scary, kind of awesome, depending on how you feel today. He said, however, I am now a smarter man, a stronger man, more resourceful, a better friend, a better human being, a better person, not because a book exists out there with my ideas in it, but because I wrote it. And the excruciating journey of writing it and wrestling with the words and trying to figure out how to put these thoughts in the right order to keep the reader captivated in a practical way that not just entertains them, but changes and transforms their lives. The process of creating, that's what made me grow. In a world that just is obsessed with the outcome and the output, I'm talking about the input. That's what changed me. Not the destination, but the journey is what made me grow. The journey is what makes it authentic. And authentic, that word, in 2023, the word of the year, and I didn't even know we had words of the year, but apparently we do. And in 2023, it was authentic. Authenticity is a big deal, so we say in our culture. And it's fascinating to me because 2023 will also be the year that goes down in history as the year that intelligence became artificial on a mainstream scale. Artificial, meaning the exact opposite of authentic. And this is what hit me last night. I said it this way. Something artificial, by definition, cannot create something authentic. And if you didn't have to wrestle with your words to write the letter, and you didn't have to dig deep, then that means it cost you nothing. And in relationships and in love, well, in relationships, the pain of the process is the evidence of your love. So, I do wonder sometimes if the new sort of norm of social anxiety, and I'm not talking about clinical social anxiety, I'm talking about just like this growing middle ground of more and more people living with sort of a chronic social anxiety all the time. Part of me wonders if it's really more of a social atrophy. The muscles of being a friend don't get worked out because this now does everything for us. And I mean, anybody else, you get nervous when somebody's calling you and you're like, why aren't you texting me? Just making eye contact. Like we're the generation of my AirPods in means don't talk to me. And they're in more than they're out. And social media and dating apps and tons of things that are good and can be tools are also a really great reason to not do any of it face-to-face or in person. And not ask her out face-to-face. And not have the conversation face-to-face, and not do the conflict resolution face-to-face, and just find new friends again instead of working through that conflict. Because, I mean, it's one thing, I used to be a phone number memorizing machine, and now I'm not. And who cares? Like truly, I'm not being sarcastic. Who cares? Because I have this to do it for me. I have other things to worry about. Who cares if you can't remember phone numbers or you need navigation to find the closest HEB? Who cares? Because you have this. But it's one thing for this to be a tool that helps you remember. It's another thing when this relationships for you. And this pursues them for you. And this expresses your feelings for you. And this handles the conflict for you. And this... Erwin McManus, he has this concept called the 7 frequencies of communication and talks about how even right now what's happening is we are experiencing a human-to-human connection. It's not just words that I'm saying. There's something invisible. There is a frequency that is carrying these words to you that is a human-to-human connection. And I was thinking about this. In the beginning when God created, he created by speaking. So there's power in words to create. But the reason words have power is because of the source the words came from. So somewhere in Proverbs it says the words have the power, that the power of life and death is in the tongue. It doesn't say words. There's power of life and death in the words, but only because the tongue transfers the power to the words. What is the source? And so this message right here, it's coming from a human source. And so I used resources and tools to help me, but I wrestled with this message all week. and in a way where I haven't wrestled with the message in a while. It was very frustrating. I'm like, God, just download it to me. But it was like I had to dig every single word. And I thought about you, and I prayed for us, and I lost sleep over it. And I did the work of not just trying to memorize it and write it, but trying to internalize it into my heart so that I could speak it more of like a conversation rather than like a speech where I'm just reciting a bunch of words that are on an iPad, so that it would have the human to human connection, okay? And we feel that, and that's becoming more and more rare as the world becomes more and more machine. And there's more and more of a market for it because we desire that frequency that comes from the heart and soul of another human being. So even right now, ladies at Lane Murray, or if you're watching this at home, there's still a human being connection. And technology's becoming a tool. Because I wrestle with this, and I'm an imperfect person just like you, who has faith and doubt just like you, who wrote a message for me and for you, and technology is helping us get this to more human beings and making the Great Commission easier and better, and that's a beautiful thing. And even though the delivery of this message is flawed and imperfect, and I won't do it as well as, let's say there was a robot on stage that looked exactly like me. A little bit more handsome, a little bit taller, the height you really think I am when I'm standing on the stage. When I see you at the Domain and you go, I thought you'd be taller. You know, the robot's that height. And the robot is funnier and has better jokes, and the comedic timing is flawless, and the points are even better, and there's no likes, and there's no ums, there's no stuttering over words, and it's communicated with perfection. There's still something cold about that. I don't know how else to describe it. There's something cold. Because even though it was flawless, a computer created it, and a machine without a soul communicated it. And something artificial cannot create something authentic. The prodigal son was given the destination without the journey. Oftentimes when it comes to relationships, AI and our phones just give us the destination. But love is about the journey. And access and that kind of power without wisdom, is your phone helping you become more authentic? Or, and I think this is most of our world, are you becoming more artificial? As we all are just consuming and taking in the same stuff and hearing the same stuff, and we're more and more just echoes of what we hear rather than voices that wrestle with the words deep inside and hear it from the Holy Spirit. And you know, for a generation that says we value authenticity so much, we sure are starting to look just a lot like each other. Is this a tool making you more authentic, or a trap that is making you more artificial, just like everybody else? So my action step for this is simple. To move from artificial to authenticity, handwrite a letter or a note. Wrestle with your words. Dig deep for what you want to say, and communicate it to somebody you love from your soul with a human frequency. Our relationship with our phones will make or break our relationships with God and with the people we love the most. And the prodigal son, he was eating dinner with pigs, and there's a really beautiful moment that happened at his proverbial rock bottom. Luke 15 verse 17 says this: when he finally came to his senses. I love that. Another translation says he came to the end of himself. And you might be here because you have come to the end of yourself and you're desperate. And what I want to say to you is praise God. What a beautiful place to be, because the end of yourself is oftentimes the beginning of God. And the prodigal son, he goes back home to his father's house. He takes agency back, so to speak, away from his inheritance and back into his heart. And with great intention, he makes the journey back to his dad's house. And his dad has been on the front porch the entire time, waiting for his kid to come home, and throws a party. And the heartbeat and mission and vision of our church comes from the heartbeat of this story. What if we could build a church like a Front Porch in Austin to welcome home those who are far from God, who maybe tried religion but never tried Jesus, to come and experience what God the Father really thinks and believes about them, that he has so much more in store for me and so much more in store for you. But I have been praying just for that moment. I don't know what sliding scale it was or action step, or if there was one phrase that really, but my prayer has been, God, don't let us leave church today like, man, I feel good. Let this bother us. What if the Holy Spirit wants this to bother you so much that you actually do something about it? Instead of like, man, I just forget 20 minutes after church and, I don't have to think about that anymore. Let this convict. Let this convict, man. That moment of agency of taking it back from this. Am I really living the life that God has for me? Or has the enemy used a tool as a trap to steal life and kill my calling and destroy my destiny? And heaven forever, then and there, that's free. That's for anybody and everybody who just puts a little bit of faith in the grace of our God. But life to the full in the here and now is for those who don't just have good intentions, but live with them.